Okay, so today we are going to start a very exciting new project. It is called an edible self-maintaining fish farm or fish tank. So the idea, a lot of people have done this, but not entirely what I'm trying to do. So basically, first of all, we're trying to do a self-maintaining ecosystem. We'll start with this tank. This is like a 36 gallon or 37 gallon fish tank, but this is basically a prototype, right? And also a breeding ground. But once we have sufficient numbers and proven of this concept, we can move it to the much larger scale, like a swimming pool or pond. And so the idea basically is, first of all, this has to be a self-maintaining ecosystem. It's hard to do as like self-sustaining because the ecosystem, you need a lot of inputs, like at least some kind of food, adding the water, a lot of inputs basically. But self-maintaining may be doable. So basically, we're trying to make this this ecosystem maintain itself. For example, for a normal aquarium or fish tank, you have to scrub the walls, and you add water, you change water, a lot of things, right? And you vacuum. With this one, we're trying to have this one require as little maintenance as possible. So basically, the idea is you never have to scrub the walls. You don't have to change the water. You may have to add water from time to time because of evaporation. You may have to give a little food if there's not enough food in there. But mostly it's self-maintaining. So I think that's doable. A lot of people on YouTube has shown the feasibility of this. But in a small scale, it's basically like a fish tank, self-maintaining fish tank. So we're going to try to do a self-maintaining system, but on a larger scale once we're successful with this little tank. And secondly, it has to be cheap. Like this, we don't want to spend a lot of money on it. So everything has to be low cost or free, and thirdly, this is also a kind of a survivalist experiment, which means we're trying to use this as a survivalist system that you can eat. It's edible. Everything in the tank should be edible, including the plants, all the things we like, all the species we put in there. It should be edible. So this is basically the idea, and so here's what the basic setup we have accomplished so far. And we have this tank. We added water, and so as you can see, water is already there, right? Basically, for water treatment, we put tap water in there. But for water treatment, we don't want to buy the water treatment things or something like that, dechlorination agents or something like that. So we just put the tap water in there, left it there for a week, and so basically the chlorine in the water will dissipate, so it makes this tank water usable for aquarium. And then secondly, we added the sand for substrate. So you have to put a lot of thoughts into like what you use for substrate. I mean, I put in the swimming pool filter sand. Why? Because first of all, the sand, the filter sand is very clean. Some people use construction sand, some people use play sand, and those sand are dirty. You have to wash it a lot. The filter sand is kind of clean. You just have to rinse it a few times. Secondly, when we move this to a larger scale, like a swimming pool, they already use a sand filter, so the sand can just be used when you, for example, when you vacuum it with the filtration system. The sand will just go into the filter. It's the same as the sand already using in the filter, so that makes sense. That's brilliant, right? So we just use filter sand for the substrate. And now for the species setup, you have to put a lot of thought into this so that they can be self-maintaining and also edible. Right? So the system is, as I envision it, should be like this. First of all, you have this is a freshwater tank, by the way. First of all, you have to have freshwater snails, and they will basically scrub the tank for you. They are the cleaner. They eat algae, so you don't have to scrub the tank for algae. And then now that you got the walls clean, for the very small particles in the water, you use freshwater clams because they are natural filtration systems. They just filter the small particles floating in the water, and they eat them basically. Right? The water will be clean. And then for plants, we put edible plants in there, and so plants basically will provide further filtration because the roots, for nutrition, they take the things out of the water, and with the sun, with the photosynthesis, they will grow and the water will become clean. Now, if you move this outdoors, there will be insects like mosquitoes or the small bugs laying eggs in the water. So you need fish to eat the mosquito larvae, for example, right, to keep the water free of all those pests. And the fish, after eating these insects and bugs, obviously they will poop. So the fish waste will be decomposed by the bacteria in the water and become nitrate, and which will be absorbed by the plants as a nutrient for the plants. And extra fish food or fish waste can be eaten by the snails or filtered by the clams, becomes their nutrients as well. So basically that's the current idea, that this is a self-maintaining fish tank. Everything supposedly will live in harmony, and the system will grow, and because everything is edible, including the plants, so you basically have protein, and you have vegetation, so you can eat in a post-apocalypse world. This supposedly will give you food. So I'll mark this as the month 1 of this project. So month 1, what we have done, I'll show you the things in there. So first of all, like I said, we put in a substrate. Then for the water, after leaving it for a week, we have added some rainwater, or like from the gutter, or maybe a garden pot. The water with a lot of bacteria and the algae, right? So we put some of the water here, filter it a bit, don't make it too dirty, but you put about a half a cup or something water mixed with this clean water, so the algae will grow, because if the water is too clean, then nothing will grow, right? So once we put some algae in there, the tank now looks a little murky, that water. So after I put that in there, we put in the freshwater snails. So in choosing this snail species, keep in mind that first of all, because this will be moved outdoors in a pond or a pool, it needs to be able to survive the winter, right? The freezing temperature. So in that, we selected this called Japanese trapdoor snails or Chinese trapdoor snails. They're pretty much the same species. So you can see these snails. So basically, besides surviving the winter, these snails, the advantage of choosing this species, the trapdoor snail, is that also they don't overpopulate, they don't take over your tank. Because in an aquarium, normally if you want to look good, you normally choose the mystery snails. They look with a bright color and they look better. But the difference is, first of all, mystery snails, because they breathe with their lungs, they need to go up to the surface of the water to breathe water. So once the pond is frozen, when it's thin layer of ice, then they pretty much will die. And the trapdoor snails are different. They don't breathe. They don't need to breathe air, so they can survive under the ice. And secondly, because these are live bearers, they give birth to baby snails. They don't lay eggs everywhere and infest the whole system with countless eggs and more snails. These are, from what I heard, they breed twice a year and they don't grow too large a population. And thirdly, this is edible. And in Asia, they eat this kind of a trapdoor snails all the time. They grow up to 2 inches, and the meat is pretty delicious in the soy sauce. Okay, so this is good. So right now we already have a bunch of baby snails in this tank. Hopefully they will grow and breed. And they are eating algae already. Besides eating algae, obviously they have the shell, so they need calcium in the water. So what you do, you put some kind of oyster shell in there, and becomes an easy calcium source for the snails and probably the clams once we have them. So right now, besides the snails, we also added the plants. So this is what I selected, the Brazilian Pennywort. The reason these are selected is that, first of all, obviously they are edible. I was told it tastes like pepper, but we'll see when we taste them. For now, these are just the starter amount, right? Hopefully they'll grow. So these are floating plants. So that's another reason I selected them. So because the substrate we only have sand, so it's not very easy to plant anything in the soil. So we just select this one as floating plants. So they have the roots, but they are free floating in the water. And the plants will pretty much just provide a shade for the fish once we have them, and they will absorb the nutrients in the water. And also the pennywort can survive freezing winter, as I'm told. So this is the plants. Pretty much this is what we have right now set up, and plants and snails. So we're going to keep a constant update about our progress in this system. Hopefully next month we can add more species in the tank, and hopefully we'll see the murky water in this tank becomes clearer because of all the snails eating algae. Okay, as for the snails, obviously everything here needs to be easily maintained and self-breeding, right? They need to grow in numbers until we can move them to a larger scale. So how do you tell the sexes of the snails, and like how do they reproduce? This is basically, like I said, these are live bearers, which means they hatch eggs in their body and they release the babies from their body. So how do you tell the snail sexes? This is what I found online. So basically for the snail, let me show you this tiny snail. You look at the antennas. So apparently for female they have 2 antennas, same length, straight. The males supposedly have one straight antenna long and one shorter antenna and curved. That's for mating. So I think this one is some kind of a male. Anyway, so this is how you tell them. So preferably you have at least 1 male and 1 female, so they can breed and produce a lot of more small snails. So later you can populate a larger tank or even a pond. And they do store sperms inside, so once they mate once, I think they're good for life.